Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Dennis Welch. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting's Unleash Your Story. I'm so grateful to have you here today. And everyone listening in, this is Dennis's music playing in the background. That's not our usual intro, but I thought it'd be nice just to do a little bit of his music in the background. You'll hear a little bit at the end. And as we get going, Dennis will not only share his inspirational story, but where you can find out more about his music, which is his great passion and why he's on this planet to serve in more than one way. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Christina. Greatly appreciated.
Oh, you betcha. You've been a wonderful help for Savvy, sending us wonderful guests. You work as the president and CEO of Articulate, a PR firm, and you've sent us wonderful people to be guests on our show. And now you're going to be a guest, and we're going to chat about how to never give up on what you're here to do, because God has given us wonderful gifts and talents, many of which people just sit on. They're like, anyone can do artwork. Anyone can write a song. No one needs what I have, but that's not true. Each of us living our gifts and talents in the world make it a better place.
Yes. And, I worked for the Gallup Organization for about 13 years, and, they studied everything. And one of the questions that they've been asking for about 30 years is, at work, I get to do what I do best every day. And for 30 years, the numbers haven't changed. Only 1 person in 5 answers yes to that question. So that means that 80% of us are just going through the motions. And, one time I was standing outside of a meeting room with Don Clifton, who was the grandfather of positive psychology. And he invented the Clifton Strengths Finder and all that. He just had, no more mountains to climb. And it was just he and I, and it was never just he and I. And so I said, Don, tell me the most profound thing you can tell me in 2 minutes. And he got really excited. He got a big smile on his face, and he held up his index finger like this. And he said, Dennis, every single person on the planet can do at least one thing better than 10,000 other people. That's the good news. He said, the bad news is most people don't have any idea what that one thing is. Wow. And he said, everybody can do. And so, all of us are sort of pre-wired and set up to be something in this world. And, but it's, you don't just find it. You don't just fall over it. You have to be willing to go out and try some things and even fail some,
Yeah.
So,
now, you just said something interesting that I didn't catch on. I thought most people kind of had an idea what they're good at or what they're here to do, but just not do it because they feel it's not special enough. Who am I? But he's saying that most people don't even know what it is, which is surprising to me. Why is that?
You know what I think, Christina? I don't know the exact reason. I'm not a psychologist, but I'll just give you my guess. And that is that it's very easy to while away your time here now. You can watch hours and hours. You can binge watch a TV show for days. Your phone, these phones that we have, are such a distraction. They're constantly stepping into conversations that we're having and stuff. And so the idea of getting quiet and getting to know yourself is not a very, I don't want to say popular, but that's probably the right word. It's not a very popular way to spend our time. And yet, if you find that, if you take the time to do it, the outcome is so amazing. I mean, your life is different than you're not just doing your 70 or 90 years or however long you live here. Look, I'm 65. I'll be 66 in a couple of weeks. And I don't know if I would have ever gotten here without sort of stepping off of the main road and trying some things that I felt like I was called to do. And look, to do it, you have to have people around you who are not naysayers, who won't say, oh, come on, songwriter, please, I never had any of those, thankfully. If I did, I didn't know it. And so, but it's kind of scary too. It's not the normal way of going, you don't just go to college and start your job and do your career and all that. It's very, going forward, it seems like a broken road, but when you look back at it, it's as smooth as glass.
Interesting. That brings to mind for me, Dennis, many years ago, I started this whole track that led me to Savvy. What I feel I'm now here to do and serve the world with is helping people bring their message out. And it was interesting. I had left because my old boss, I had been in 4 different jobs, and I kept getting laid off. They kept having financial issues. I'm sorry, you have to be laid off. My last boss said, hey, you do this for 20 odd years. You're awesome at it. I think you should start your own financial firm. I never thought of owning a business, running a business, whatever. But with his mentorship, I went out there and started that. But the thing is, when I started it, it wasn't as easy as I thought. But bottom line, I got out there, started to get some clients. But here's the thing, because I wasn't doing the day-to-day 9 to 5, I had more reflection time. Right. And my mentor I hired at the time said, so do you love this? I'm like, nah, I'm good at it. And she's like, right. So what do you love to do? I'm like, I don't know. You kind of lose touch. So I think, to your point, yes. I think what happens is people are on this kind of hamster wheel. They lose touch of who they are. What are their passions? What do I love to do? What makes me happy and gives me joy?
Right. And the trick is, Christina, is to find time and maybe even an inspiration somewhere to rekindle that, because if you find that thing that you're supposed to be doing, which you have, God bless you, I'm glad you have, for one thing, it changes the world a little bit, because of what you're doing, and you may not know it in this moment, but it is, people that you don't even know are being encouraged by, your work here. And the other thing you have to be willing to do is you have to be willing to not be afraid of failure. I wrote a piece for Arianna Huffington's Thrive Global here last year. I had a song out that was going all over the place. Why Not Me? It was a top 15 song and all that. And so I wrote this article and I said, there's a lot of things worse than failure. Regret, for one thing, is a lot worse than failure, because if you fail, you can pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep going, but you can't fix the things you never tried. And so good for you for being willing to say, and sometimes when you're going through that stuff, it feels like the end of something, like your company's going out of business and having financial problems and all that. You feel like, am I just a bad chooser of companies or something? But the truth is that if those things, now you look back at those things and you go, hey, that was kind of a blessing, because it gave me a bridge to this thing that I'm supposed to do. And I couldn't have built that bridge without being stopped. Yeah. And that's kind of the opposite of how we view success, honestly. Yeah. People think success is linear, and I don't believe that for a minute. It might be. I'm happy for you if it is, but it's never been linear for me,
I don't think it is for most people. But what's nice is what you're talking about, the difficulty, the struggles are some of the things that, when they come about, can be blessings at times, because you're like the loss of a job, or, I'm forced to have to move, your company takes you to a new town. Well, now you meet the love of your life and you didn't expect that. Exactly. Things happen unexpectedly. But let's also talk about the people who know what they're here to do, but they're like, it's not special enough. Why should I do that? Well, if everyone did that, we'd be missing a whole bunch of wonderful gifts.
Yeah. First of all, how do you know? Because the measuring stick that we use, I'm writing a book. I've been writing it for several years. I hope I can finish it in 2022, but it's about redefining success. I wrote a book a few years ago called Rich People Shop Here, and it was just a little memoir about my mother and my family. She's a very funny, really bright person, and everybody loved her. And so I sat with her and interviewed her every Saturday and recorded the interviews and wrote the book and all that. Well, the first thing people say to you, Christina, when you say I've written a book, what's the first thing people say? How many did you sell? Was it a bestseller? Well, you know what? I don't know the answer I don't know how many I sold, but I know that I bump into people occasionally whose lives were changed by that story, and they tell me, and I don't even, strangers sometimes. And I think, I could say I spent all that time writing that book and I sold, 1,000 or 3,000 or whatever copies. So that's not successful, right? But I could discount my work, which people are great at doing, right? And talk myself out of it. But But I look at that and I go, isn't that success? You know, if somebody you don't know is hearing this and you don't know till you get to heaven that their life was changed, then that's as successful as you can be. And, you know, I feel like that I'm following my calling because I can't not follow it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I feel desperate about stopping and not doing it. And so people say, you know what, you have a full-time job, you own this PR and communications company, and you still go in at night and you write all these hundreds and hundreds of songs. You know, why are you doing that? And my answer is, how can I not do it? Right. Yeah. And I think once you get to that point, you know, you start pursuing it with the vengeance that it takes to be successful at something. It doesn't just happen. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I love that you say that, because as you get started, you mentioned how your life will change when you take the course of doing what you're here to do, your great gifts and talents, and you use them in the world. And for me, I can tell, I didn't realize this, but when I used to be the worker bee, just going into a job, I would sit there by the water cooler often and complain all day long, meet friends after work, go have those cocktails, complain. And I did not know I was a complainer until I started not going to a job and doing this and loving this. I found I would get together with friends and I would just talk about all the wonderful guests and all the things I learned and all the cool people that are so interesting. Like every single person has a unique story and unique gifts, and it's never boring. And my friends were like, but don't you want to complain some more about these things in life and people? And I don't want to. And
no, it all looks different, doesn't it?
It all looks different. And I think, to your point, that is a great point to realize that once you start living what you're here to do, you're not going to be thinking about the yucky boss or something that
and you'll get to be my age. I'm going to be 66 in a couple of weeks. And, you know, a lot of my friends are retiring and God bless them. Okay. But they ask me when I'm going to retire. And, you know, my joke is that I want to die on a Friday night because I want to get a full weekend, because what I do is it's not work to me. It's joy. And what a great place to be. But, you know, you can't, a while back, a few weeks ago, I was sweeping my garage out, and my neighbor, he's 45. He runs across my front yard. He's been keeping up with what's been going on with the new album and all that stuff. And and on Facebook and that. And so he runs across my yard, and kind of out of the corner of my eye, I see him, and he scoops me up and hugs me. And I said, Mike, what are you doing? And he said, well, I just have been keeping up with you on Facebook, and I want to tell you something. He said, I'm 45. And he said, my nightmare is that I'm 65 like you are, and I don't have any work to do that matters. And I said, well, you know what, Mike, there's a couple of things I would say to that. I said, first of all, thank you, of course. I said, but you know, if you don't proactively start now knowing yourself, getting to know who you really are and what you really want in life. I said, if you do that, if you don't do that, the momentum of the world sort of sweeps you out to pasture at some point. And so you got to put a stake in the ground and know who you are. And I said, but here's the bad news. To really do this right, I said, I've had to leave the main road that feels safe. I've had to cut my way through the forest, and I've had to pave my own road. And by the way, I have no idea where that road is going much of the time. But I know I'm supposed to be on it. And I'm convinced that I am. And so, you know, and so that's all of that seems daunting when you look at it from that side. But when you look at it from this side, as you know, because you can look at it from this side, it's like, what took me so long? Right?
I kind of wish I figured this out in my 20s. But, you know, to your point, to get started at any age, get started, because there's no better day than today, because you don't know even how long
right.
You might not be here till 65. You might.
That's right. And you know what? And the best time to start is now.
Now,
you know?
right there. Yeah.
So
right now. Well, we could go on a long time, I know, but you've given our audience a lot of food for thought to really, you know, go in if you're not living what you feel you're here to do, or maybe you're like where I was and you're like, I don't even know what I'm here to do. I'm on that hamster wheel. Well, you could begin by just starting to ask yourself the question, what did I used to love as a kid? What gave me joy? Stuff like that, just to get started. I journaled it for me. That helped, and did it every day and began to open it up for me. But let everyone know, Dennis, where they can find out more about you, find out and hear your wonderful songs and your PR agency, which is right there.
Right. So our Be Articulate is my PR firm. We specialize in books. I've always been a reader. And so this is heaven. I get to work with authors and get to help them promote their books to the media and get interviews and all that stuff. My music site, my music publishing site, because my goal in this is not to become a star. My goal in this is to record these songs well and have other artists who really are touring and doing all that stuff to perhaps record these songs. And so the story really is on my Welch Words site. It's welch-words.com. And it tells the whole crazy story. And if you go to all the streaming services, you'll find all 5 of the records that I've done. And they're available now, which means a lot to me. At least they're out there. And I'm writing right now and starting to record a new record for 2022. I haven't titled it yet, but I'm on a writing jag right now. So I've been in my writing room a lot. You know how that is when you get on a creative bent. It's like, let's see where this takes me, So anyway, I'm really blessed, Christina, and I'm married to a woman who is fearless. When I left the Gallup Organization, that was the first real job I'd ever had. We're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. I was there 13 years. I went back and got an MBA and all this kind of regular stuff. But at the end of 13 years, I knew I was supposed to leave and go do something else, but I didn't even know what it was. And I sat with Susie on a beach in Miami, and she said, what's going on with you? Because I know something's going on. And I said, I think I'm supposed to leave the Gallup Organization, but I feel weird about it because they pay our bills and stuff. It feels kind of safe here, Yeah. And you know what she said? She looked straight at me and she said, I'm just wondering what took you so long. Yeah. Not, what are we going to do next, or how are we going to make it, or how are we going to have any money to pay our bill? That wasn't her first question. Her first statement was, you probably should. I know you're trying to keep us and take care of us, but you should have probably done this 6 months ago. So, what a great partner to have if you're going to go exploring to find out who you are and try some things you've dreamed about. You don't want a bunch of naysayers around you because they'll stop you. They'll stop you from doing it. They'll stunt your growth, basically, Yeah,
they will. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dennis. Go to bearticulate.com if you need some PR services. And again, give them the website for your music as well.
It's Welch, WELCH -words, WORDS.com.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, I just have to thank you again for your wonderful wisdom today on Savvy Broadcasting. Unleash your story. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Christina. Much appreciated. Okay.
Gotcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.